allegedly going.
Yep.
Oh, the microphone's in the way. La 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 la.
La 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 la. La 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 la. Welcome to the live chat.
Yes.
Did we give anybody any heads up that we're going on?
Yes, I posted something earlier today.
Okay. Hello.
I'm trying to be better.
Hmm.
You know, I'm actually doing show notes again, giving people a heads up.
That's good. I've been
Facebook group again. I'm what else am I doing? Oh, I'm posting the audio episodes on time.
Yeah.
So it's getting
it's all
back
coming together.
Yep. Until we take a hiatus next week. Which sad face.
So one of the things I was thinking. What's up, Tom?
Yeah.
One of the things I was thinking we should do with the Patreon topics is potentially try and have them Skype in at some point at the end of the episode.
That'd be great.
I don't know logistically how we would do that.
I'm sure it's possible.
Even if it was just audio.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure I can. Same way I do like a screen grab of like the web browser. I can just like load up Skype on that screen and then do a screen capture here, and then you got their little face right there in the middle. Assuming they want to be on camera. Some
right.
people might not want to be.
Or you just do the audio or whatever. But I just think if somebody's, I like to get their feedback. Like, okay, how do we do with your topic, as opposed to just being on the chat? You're like, hey, here's your chance.
Yeah.
You can let us know live.
I agree with everything you just said. So
Hooray.
I know Big Lovin said he's not going to be in tonight, but they were working on something. Whatever that means.
Oh. Any type of metal, like anything that we do for the award for fantasy, it has to be the New Hope medal.
Oh,
that's
right.
It has to be.
Can you buy one of those?
Well, I don't know. We can make it. I can make it out of wood.
I can't make anything, so
I can definitely make one.
Okay.
I mean, we could make it out of wood, like an appropriate size, so it looks like real, like fucking, like banging, like if you're wearing it.
Well,
we get the ribbon, and then on the metal itself, we can have an engraved plate.
Yeah.
Of whoever the winner was.
Yeah.
The winner of the year, the team name, all that stuff.
I like it. All right, yeah.
Because I know we were talking about the WWE belt and shit that.
I just wrote that just to
that would be cool, but then I was thinking, man, it can only be one thing. Like, what's the only medal that's ever been presented in Star Wars? And that's one you have to do. Yep. And then Chewbacca obviously doesn't get one. Because Chewbacca.
Right. Okay, so.
How about them Cowboys, huh? Fuck those Cowboys.
Yeah.
I am. So we are going to be deliberately avoiding football shit for You
will not bait us.
For the first part of this, because we've got Star Wars topic that we're going to bang out, and then the bonus episode or the bonus coverage is going to be us talking about the league, talking about football, what happened for the week, and however long that takes, that's what it takes.
Yeah. So 2 streams today.
Yep.
Starting with the Star Wars. So without further ado, I guess we want to get started.
Give me 3 seconds to figure out a.
They all thought we were starting at 6. That's why nobody's in the chat.
Yeah,
well, starting early. Sorry. This is the thing, though, that I don't understand. Is everybody acts like, oh, I'm not going to be there to see it. Oh, but they record the video on YouTube. Like, you can just go back and watch the video.
But then you can't be like involved in the chat and everything.
That's true.
That seems to be the draw.
True. Okay, that makes sense. The interaction.
Yeah.
And then they're all going to be pissed. You guys went live a half hour early.
Well, let's face it. What's going to end up happening is we're going to be talking about our weeks for about a half an hour. And then by the time that happens, then we'll get into the topic.
Okay.
There's always preamble. No matter how hard we try, there's always preamble. Whether it's football or whatever, there's always something.
Yeah. All right, fair enough. So if you're ready, we can start the clock. And you're not baiting us, Tom. You're not doing it. we're not getting off on any football tangents until the football episode after this. Oh, if you want to do us a solid, though, Tom, you can post this in the Facebook group and say, hey, these assholes are live a little bit early. If you're so inclined. You don't have to. But a true fan would do that.
Penn State fight songs in my head for some reason, which is, I guess, is better than Blue's Clues. Wasn't that last week?
Oh, my God. Kristen still, like, 2 or 3 days ago, she just said in the middle of nowhere, why was Dave singing Blue's Clues?
Because it's a really fun game. I don't know, man.
It was pretty funny.
The machinations of my brain are an enigma.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we good? We ready?
Let me get caught up on the drive here. I've got our notes. Do it. Okay, I got it.
All right, so your toast, 30 seconds of silence. Recording is going. Starting now.
To football.
To football! Which we will not be talking about at all this episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to All Things Star Wars, the greatest Star Wars podcast in the galaxy. I'm Mr. Jason Roscom. With me here each and every single week, the Darth Vader to my Palpatine, Dave Martin. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Jason.
How are you?
I'm good. What are you distracted by?
I'm watching the delay on our YouTube stream, and it's us sitting there doing the 30 seconds of silence, and I'm like, why is the fucking YouTube locked up? What happened? Not realizing it was during the 30 seconds of silence.
Yep.
So
See, that's you have to bend this down a little bit so that you can actually see what's going on over there with the chat. Like, that's the whole reason that it's up on that screen.
Right. So if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, this is the kind of shit that you're missing.
Yeah.
So subscribe and you will do it.
Do it.
So what are we talking about this week?
So this week is our first Patreon selected topic.
Yes. We're very excited about this.
I can't say it's our first. Like, we've had
listeners pick
we've had
in the past.
I was going to say user input, but listeners is more appropriate, I guess.
Yeah. Now this is the user mandated based upon the Patreon donations topic.
Yeah, what he said.
Right.
So
big words.
Yeah, so today is, how did you title this? Oh, the Death Star construction.
Yes, and I subtitled it in our YouTube stream, Logistical Nightmare.
Yeah. So we're gonna get into the minutia. Like, all right, first of all, if you're watching right now for just shenanigans, I'm not saying there won't be a fair amount of shenanigans, but this is going to be like, since a Patreon supporter has selected this topic, we are going to do our due diligence and focus squarely on our topic in Star Wars with as few sidebars as possible. I make no guarantees. Right. However, that being said, we're going to try and get into some of the minutia of what it was, the logistical nightmare that would have been building the Death Star. What the fuck is that?
Is that a bee? Holy shit, I think it is a bee. We've got a bee flying around here in the studio. Hang on. So while Dave is, where's your fucking salt gun?
It's at home.
So while Dave is,
it's a stink bug. Fuck, I can't see.
Is battling the stink bug in the studio here. Just want to give another shout out to all of our patrons. So Shotgun Mark, Don Solsky, Frank Kulovich, Tactical Swede, Scott Rasmussen, Camille Donovan, and Big Lovin'. Thank you to all of you guys. You are the reason why we do this. And
fucking cats on this thing. I can't tell. Oh, there it is. Sorry.
And Dave is.
I got it.
So you don't want to kill a stink bug because then
it's because it stinks.
Right. Hence stink bug, and it stinks up the whole place. So we had to capture it inside of a cup that nobody is going to drink out of at this point.
Well, especially since it's been sitting in here for a week and not being cleaned.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Bye.
So, all right.
Hello!
Before we get into our main topic, we do have some of our usual show stuff to get to. So, first, next week, we are not recording. So the week of September 16th, no live broadcast that night because I will be out of town in Maryland, somewhere near Baltimore. Work stuff. So
Empire stuff.
Lots of Empire stuff.
Lots of Empire stuff.
So sorry about that, but we will be back in 2 weeks with another pick a topic. But we're doing 2 episodes tonight, so take that for what it's worth. Why is your monitor doing that?
Because you're shaking too much, Jason.
Oh my god, fine. I won't touch the fucking table. We had a bit of a leak. Now, we don't normally talk about leaks on the show because, and as you'll see later on when we get to my week, we try to avoid spoilers for upcoming events, be it movies, TV shows, whatnot.
True.
But when it comes to action figures and toys, I don't really give a fuck. I don't think talking about those kind of leaks.
Well, that's because it's normal release shit, right? You know, before the movie comes out, there's going to be like, oh, here's this Lego movie. Here's this. Before Last Jedi, we had the Battlefront 2 game when it came out. Excuse me. And had a whole nother storyline that we thought was going to be so integral to the fucking movie when it wasn't.
No. So, anyway, some new Black Series figures got leaked this week. Now, this has not been officially released by Hasbro or Lucasfilm, but we're going to talk about them anyway because we got a handful of them. The biggest one being the Mandalorian. The actual character of the Mandalorian. Black Series figure looks fucking sweet.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, it looks so good. I got too if you care.
No, totally. I posted that picture in a group and it was pretty spectacular.
Yeah, so
it's still blinking.
I know.
That's really distracting.
It's very distracting.
What the fuck is happening?
And on the YouTube too, you can see our faces get lighter and darker because
there is not a strobe light in the background.
Dave's monitor is losing its fucking mind.
Well,
jiggle the connection.
I did.
Okay. Well, I don't know what to tell you.
Jiggle it just a little bit.
This is one that I'm probably gonna pick up, honestly, especially if the Mandalorian is as good as we're hoping it is. So there is an off-world Jawa, which I don't believe it actually says what material this is from, but it's a Jawa, just like the ones that we know, except he's in like a gray outfit.
Oh, Jawa.
Yeah. So no Jawa, and
what he says.
I know.
Oh.
It's a bit of a joke.
Star Wars stuff.
Yes, lots of Star Wars stuff. So this, I'm guessing this is another piece from The Mandalorian, this off-world Jawa, because how can you not have Jawas in like an Old West type of Star Wars show?
In Rogue One, no, not Rogue One, in Solo, I thought you had an off-world Jawa as well.
Did we?
I thought there was Jawas in that. There might not have been. I could be totally wrong, and probably am.
Hey, Tevin Daniels, how's it going?
You got to tilt that back, man.
Whatever. Your stupid ass monitor.
Slide that forward.
We got a Ray and a Dio. Nothing too spectacular there.
We saw the Dio in the.
It was Celebration, I think, is when he was first.
It's a celebration.
Yeah, when they first.
I can't help it every time.
Yeah, we don't know anything about him, and then of course we got Cal Kestis, who is the main character in the Jedi Fallen Order video game. So we got his character on here.
Whatever.
Yeah. Now, one of the interesting ones is we got Kylo Ren, but this is Supreme Leader Kylo Ren. Now, the only thing that I find interesting about that is it kind of brings up this whole topic of Palpatine coming back in Rise of Skywalker and what this means for the power structure of the First Order.
Right.
Or is he even involved in the First Order? Is he coming back with his old school empire and fuck the First Order?
Yeah.
So,
I'm leaning more towards the latter.
Yeah.
I think that Palpatine's off there doing his own thing, and at some point Kylo Ren is going to be wanting to get on Palpatine's good side.
See, I'm thinking that it's going to be more of a power struggle. Like, if Palpatine is really back in some sort of physical form, it's going to be a power struggle between the two of them. Like, because Kylo Ren's got his shit, Palpatine always wants to be in control.
He is a fucking pussy, and Palpatine was going to fry him like a piece of bacon. Like, there's no fucking way that Kylo Ren it's not fucking Snoke. He's not going to trick him with some fucking like, oh, I see you taking out your enemy type bullshit. No.
Yeah.
Palpatine is not that guy.
Yeah, he's too smart for that shit.
Yep. So.
All right. So these handful of Black Series figures were leaked. There's speculation that they're going to come out on Force Friday, which is about a month from now, October I had it written down. 4th. So less than a month from now is Force Friday, which is when, all the big Star Wars shit gets released, toys and...
We know Bronco Fett had probably... I think he warned us at some point a couple of weeks ago in the chat that Force Friday was going to be when a lot of the stuff was coming out. And leave it to our listeners to be smarter than we are in Star Wars.
Yeah, we rely on these guys.
Yes.
Because we need them. So, that's it for really any Star Wars news that's happened over the last week. There are so many fucking theories and alleged plot leaks and all this other bullshit that are popping up fucking everywhere. I'm avoiding all of them.
Yeah.
And
same.
this is a good way to get right into our weeks, because that was one of the notes I had here is I might be going on a social media blackout sooner than later because of all of these fucking leaks. In fact, some of these, like these clickbaity websites, they're putting the fucking leak in the title of the goddamn article, and then people are posting them on fucking Facebook and all these Star Wars Facebook groups. I'm like, motherfucker, if that turns out to be true, I'm gonna be fucking pissed.
Yeah.
Thankfully, there are so many plot leaks and so many, spoilers out there that's like the whole gambit of fucking possibilities of what could happen in this movie. So, like...
Listen, everybody's trying to be the first, right?
Yeah.
If we by some miracle guess whatever the fuck it is, then that would be awesome. But it's a guess.
Yeah.
It's a guess at any point, and I think I'd like to think that we're doing it right by saying, okay, we're isolating ourselves from all that nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Like Big Swede at work is fucking... He's... every one of those clickbait things, he's in it, and then he's into the discussions belowhand, and he's talking about how stupid they are. I'm like, I don't
even want to hear it. I don't even want to, even if the article is bullshit, I don't want to read it.
Yeah, exactly, because I don't want something that I accidentally read that is so outlandish to affect how I might think about it.
Yeah,
I want all of my nonsense to be genuine.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and even thinking about The Last Jedi, there were some really fucking surprise moments in that movie where if they had been spoiled ahead of time, it'd have been like, oh, okay. And then you get to that point in the movie like, okay, that's the thing that I read. Mm-hmm. I know I stayed pretty much spoiler-free with the exception of that email fiasco that went on that didn't really affect anything. Like when fucking Kylo Ren turns on that lightsaber and cuts Snoke in half. I legitimately in the theater was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Because I did not see that coming whatsoever. So,
and that's exactly what you want to roll into it with that level of experience. I love having it that clean. Yeah. It just washes over you, and that feeling is genuine. Because
you only get that once. Mm-hmm. Also, for everybody who saw fucking Vader tell Luke that he was his father in Empire Strikes Back, only got to experience that.
Could you imagine how bad that would have been? How bad it was back in those days if there were social media.
Oh, God.
Like, there's no way. Yeah. It's a miracle that he can keep this shit locked down now.
Yeah.
It's probably on the threat of losing money or whatever. It's the only reason they can stay quiet.
Yeah, so it's... that they're going to have some sort of a twist, surprise, or whatever in Rise of Skywalker, and I want that to stay a surprise. I don't want it to be spoiled in any way. So... if nothing else, I'm in a lot of Star Wars Facebook groups. I'm probably going to start muting all of those on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably going to unfollow any not legitimate Star Wars source on Instagram, just because I don't want anything fucking accidentally spoiling any aspect of this movie. I want it to be all officially, Lucasfilm released material or nothing. So,
okay.
But that's me, and I have a feeling that's coming sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it's starting to get a little thick.
Yeah.
It really is.
So I thought I would be able to get by through the end of October without going on a blackout, but I think it's going to have to happen sooner.
Yeah, I know. I feel you. And the fortunate thing for me is as many groups of that shit that I'm in, I'm pretty disciplined about just kind of scrolling by it and don't. I don't know if it's just my filtering is just really good and I'm just not looking for it.
I'm just afraid it's going to be in the title and I'm going to be furious if that happens.
I don't blame you.
So, all right. Today is September 9th, which I didn't realize until this morning when I'm at work. I'm click on some stuff. I had to date something that I signed, and I dated September 9th. I'm like, holy shit. It's September 9th, 2019, which 20 years ago on this day was September 9th, 1999, so it was 9/9/99.
Right.
Which, for some people, it just it's all nines. Who gives a shit? Well, that was actually a pretty big day in gaming history, and I still remember that day. To this day.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So, 9/9/99 was the day...
Sounds like the sounds like a special at Golden Corral.
Yeah, that would be funny. No, that was the day that I bought this.
Oh.
My Sega Dreamcast, which I still have my original fucking Sega Dreamcast. But that wasn't the only thing that came out that day. Also released on that very same day, 9/9/99, was Final Fantasy VIII. The long-anticipated follow-up sequel to Final Fantasy VII, like what some people claim is one of the greatest video games ever made. And that was a very big day in gaming. I actually was working part-time at a GameStop, which I think it was actually EB Games at the time, in the build-up to that. And it was fucking huge. The Dreamcast launch and the launch of Final Fantasy VIII. And I just remember 9/9/99 was the day that they both launched. And when I saw that today, first of all, I'm like, oh yeah, that was 20 years ago. And now I'm thinking, holy fuck, that was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That's blows my fucking mind to think about.
Yeah, because that's less than a month from my daughter's birth.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because she was born 10/1/99.
Oh, shit.
So, yeah, we were in that mode. Well, I mean, think about that time frame, right? 99, so much. We had a lot of Star Wars stuff, video game stuff, obviously. I was working. I was actually... October 1st, 1999 is when I started my active duty stint with the unit.
Yeah.
So all that shit, I was prepping, like quitting giving notice of my other job at CompuCom. We're getting ready to move on base. Like, so we're, packing up the apartment and getting that ready and doing all this other shit. The fact is, I think we had our base house before I started the tour. And because I remember I painted her room, right before she was born. Painted up the room that was going to be hers and all that. And we're talking about the old base housing too.
I remember those.
The fucking Fountain Courts North shit wagons.
Yep.
So, yeah, all that stuff was happening. Like, so it doesn't surprise me that I don't remember really anything because it was so fucking busy we had a toddler and getting ready to have a kid, just coming off an activation, getting ready to start an active duty tour and I end up in for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, fucking crazy.
Yeah. So, but I saw that this morning. I'm like, holy shit, it's been 20 fucking years. Because for me, I was in the last few months of my first tour on active duty at that point. Because I separated that next January. So I already had plans in the works to move back to California, separate from the Air Force, and yeah, we'll see how that got me. But yeah, man, it was 99 was a crazy year for me. I know I've told this story before on the podcast, but that was such a fucking wild time in my life. But I remember that whole fucking year and everything that was going on at that time.
That's crazy.
And Tom in the chat actually mentioned the WWF game on the Dreamcast was amazing. It was, and 99 was actually when pro wrestling was at its fucking peak. And I remember watching a lot of wrestling back then. This is when Steve Austin and The Rock were both coming up, and went to a bunch of live shows here in Philly. So it was a good year. And yeah, I just figured that was worth bringing up, even though it's really not Star Wars related whatsoever.
Try not to guess yourself into not being satisfied with the art. What does that mean?
This
Don.
is Solsky in the chat. I have no idea what he's talking about.
What?
Yeah. Anyway, so
you're an art.
Yeah. One other thing, I'm on Snapchat now. So
yeah, what the fuck's up with that?
Yeah, so there is a Instagram model, I guess you would call her, / streamer who I follow, she's starting to put a lot more of her content on Snapchat, and I wanted to continue to follow her. So I'm like, all right, I guess I got to make this thing. And,
oh my god!
And of course, in my contacts, it has you and Kristen, a bunch of.
I have
people,
one.
So.
I have a Snapchat.
Yeah, I added you. So.
Okay.
Unless it's invite this friend to Snapchat. I don't know, but
maybe. I think I created one. Actually, you know what? I did create one because I was teaching a social media course, and Snapchat had just started.
Okay.
So and the kids were using it, so I had to kind of get involved in it so I could teach to it.
Yeah.
And that was it. I never actually posted anything.
Yeah.
It has a lot of interesting functionality, and it's kind of as we could have a whole discussion about where social media goes. Now that all the adults are on Facebook, and we're kind of overtaking Instagram too. Now the kids are on Snapchat, and there's probably 2 or 3 other things.
Right, that we have no idea about. And to
Kate said something about there's she was on something. I forget what it was. She's like, "Oh, that's like a white girl Snapchat."
Yeah.
I'm like, "What?"
That's funny.
Yeah, like it's a whole. They're
whatever. A whole other subsection.
Yeah.
But yeah, like perusing Snapchat and kind of looking at the interface and things like that. It's very indicative, or at least of the perception of young people of today.
Mm-hmm.
Very story oriented. Very just kind of like.
Quick that's
the
thing.
To the next thing.
The thing that I can't get my brain around with Snapchat is the fucking constantly taking a picture of myself.
Right.
Like I'd rather take a picture of anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like not me. Like nobody gives a. I don't fucking care.
Yeah.
Like I don't need this framed up so I can see it.
Right.
I'd rather take a picture of something that I enjoy in front of me. And that's what I'll post on Instagram.
Right, and you can't even like take previously taken selfie of yourself. Like, good angle, I got good lighting in that one. No, it has to be like right then and there. You can't just upload a already existing photo. It's fucking weird.
Yeah,
kids today,
I'll probably download it just to, if some of the fans are on Snapchat, then I guess I have to.
Yeah. Well, and that made me think like,
oh my god,
should we make one for the show? And then like, every pre-show just be like, hey, we're about to go live.
But we could do that with Instagram too.
We could, which I prefer Instagram. I like Instagram.
Yeah, it's you get a 1-minute video out of it, and
yeah,
which was a pain in the ass when I was posting this week. So I took like a 3-minute video, then realized, fuck, it only takes a fucking minute a shot. Then I'm editing. Like I just wanted to put something up real quick, and now I have to fucking edit. Really annoying.
Yeah. So and shout out to the Canadian Khaleesi on Instagram and Snapchat. If you don't follow her. I would highly recommend you do. She's the one that I recommended to you last week. The Canadian Khaleesi or just Canadian Khaleesi. She has both usernames. Yeah, that's all I got to say about that. And I think
she a veteran?
What's that? She is a veteran. Yeah, she just separated like within the last year.
Yeah, so support veterans.
Yes. And she needs some support. I'll just say that. So that's my week. What about you?
Jesus. So I'm stymied. I had a whole thing and I forgot. Thinking about fucking support.
You do have a note in here.
So I was cleaning out the attic. Basically took everything out of the attic and I've got it all spread out in one of the empty rooms right now. And going through stuff and I found a box of Star Wars stuff. And you want to see what I found in a box? Go on our Instagram.
What's in the box?
Go on our Instagram, and you can see some of the shit that was in the box. But you'll have to bear with me. I have to run out to the car.
You brought stuff.
I brought stuff, indeed. Just entertain them for a minute.
So I don't know if I should keep talking so we don't have a lot of dead air, or if I should just be quiet so Truncate Silence takes all of this out. I'll just keep talking about my favorite Instagram model, the Canadian Khaleesi. I'll even spell that for you, for anybody out there. Instagram, going to Instagram, pulling up my feed, looking for Khaleesi. Yeah, see, I made that rhyme. And I came up with that all in my own head. Okay, so it's all one word, the Canadian Khaleesi, spelled Khaleesi. Like Game of Thrones. And then her other username is just Canadian Khaleesi. Follow her on Instagram. She's worth taking a gander at. I'll just say that. And again, military vet, so sorry, I just pulled up her page and Dave's back. What? Holy shit. You are fucking kidding me. My god. It's fucking huge.
That's what she said.
Indeed she did.
So,
this is fucking incredible.
Let's make sure we can... This thing is so big it actually spans like both cameras almost normal.
So he's got a Millennium Falcon. But you think about the Millennium Falcon toys from back in the 70s and 80s. This thing is what? 4 or 5 times that size?
Oh yeah. This thing is to scale with the action figure.
Yeah, whereas the other ones were not to scale.
Open up the cockpit.
And it's Chewie.
Yeah, you got Chewie sitting in the cockpit.
Yeah, and it's to scale. So Imagine like how big this thing would be if it was to scale to these 3.5-inch figures. My God.
So this thing is so fucking cool. It's got an escape pod, which is actually up here. The obviously makes that noise.
Yes.
Makes those noises. But you open up the compartment. You've got you got the ramp that comes down over here.
Yep.
It's got the secret compartments there. Here, hold that, and I will get this part off. Just holding this thing up
it's fucking massive.
And then you got
the chessboard,
the jerk table, and just you can see Han's chair there where he tells fucking Luke that he's a dumbass.
Yeah. So I guess Lando's closet is probably back here somewhere.
Back in there. Well, see, that's what right here. I don't know if you can see. Hang on.
The double doors there.
Yeah, there's like these double doors.
Oh my God.
The double doors. This thing makes all the noises. So you got like a set of double doors right there, and there's space in there for figures. So that's probably the shaggin' wagon closet back there. And then, what a cool feature on the side here.
Oh yeah.
Since I took off the door.
Oh.
And then.
And that's the actual escape pod that fucking Homegirl was in.
Yep.
How long have you had this?
So this was my brother-in-law had gotten this for his son, and his son didn't want it. And when they were moving, he was gonna throw it away.
Are you fucking?
He was
kidding
gonna
me?
throw this away.
It's in perfect condition.
Yeah, there's a little bit of stain here from it getting something dripped on it. But
it just looks like it's seen some shit.
Yep. But I mean, the detail work in this, it'd probably be worth a video later with a little bit better lighting.
Yeah.
But holding it up to my torso, if you can imagine, it encompasses basically my entire torso.
That is unbelievable.
It's effing huge. Huge!
Yeah.
The biggest thing ever. So, what I think is that this needs to find its way, maybe hanging from the ceiling, a little bit like this.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I've got a first order TIE fighter that maybe we can get on the ceiling. That's the same scale.
Okay.
So we'll figure something out. But
holy shit, we've got too much stuff to display at this point.
We do. However, I think this is way better served being here in the studio than in my attic.
There may have to be a studio edict at some point. So,
fuck all
that. Oh, and you've got some other stuff there too.
So when he turned that over, he turned it over with
this guy. It's that little land walker thing from we saw it in the special edition when that fucking speeder goes by. It's like and knocks the jaw off.
Yeah, and this is like
vulture droids.
A vulture droid, and that's like to scale, I think.
Yeah.
For a vulture droid. So here, hold that. Put that somewhere.
That's what she said.
I got to get the landing gear for the Falcon out of my pocket.
Oh my God. This thing's big. This actually looks larger scale than that Falcon because I thought these vulture droids were pretty small overall.
Well, they look small when they're climbing all over the fighters in Clone Wars.
So it's good though. Very nice, very detailed.
So
we're here by the Dreamcast. That's pretty impressive. So the more Dave cleans out his attic, the more
Star Wars shit
comes into the studio.
Whew.
So
why am I sweating?
You were outside, and there's no air conditioner.
There is no air conditioning here.
All right, so
that was the big thing.
Okay.
Obviously the big addition to the studio.
Yeah. So
the other thing I got to do last week, courtesy of a friend of the podcast, John, who said that we got to have him on. He has I don't know. He wants to come on the show.
Sure. Like, he hasn't said shit to me. So.
Yeah. Well, we're just with him on Friday.
Yeah.
So he had, as you well know, the Chief Master Sergeant in the Air Force was on base last week.
Yep.
And John had let me know weeks in advance before that. That, hey, I got saddled with this thing. We're like 10 days in advance because he got saddled with a short notice, right?
Oh, yeah.
So he tells me it's going. I'm like, well, I have to have a selfie with the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, right? I started with this, and all I could think about is Rick and Morty, like the Rick and Morty episode where the Morty wants a selfie with the president, and the president is like, no, I refuse, and a fucking fist fight ensues between Morty and the president, and it's all this other shit to get this fucking selfie. So this is what I have in my mind. Like, I'm gonna have to trap the fucking Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. Now, this is the highest ranking enlisted person in the United States Air Force.
Yep.
The guy.
Yep.
He's at the top.
Also known as Enlisted Jesus to
right.
a lot of people.
So he has a huge following on social media. He's done a lot of good for the enlisted force. He's very aware of what we, or me formerly, and currently you need in the enlisted force to be able to like make your quality of life better and shit like that.
Sure.
He's engaged on multiple levels of social media. Great all around guy. Enlisted Jesus. I'm like, I have to have a fucking selfie with Enlisted Jesus. So now, granted, I'm retired. I look like this. Got my fucking beard and everything else. So the day the event arrives, Jason was there, and I'm like, I'm gonna do this, right? Fun fact. Dave petrified of doing this. Like, leading up to it, I'm like, yeah, Dave seems like he's so good. Yeah, that's no problem, blah, 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 right? It's all a fucking farce, dude. And no, in my brain, I'm like, how the fuck am I going to pull this off? So the very last minute, just before he rolls out, I managed to get his attention, distract him with some fucking patch or whatever, and then despite his handlers not wanting me to do it, I got a fucking selfie with Enlisted Jesus.
Yep.
So the fun afterthought of that is I get the selfie. He's laughing about it. It was fucking great. Made my day. On Friday, that was all Thursday. Friday, I got a message from Steve Salzbach, and he says, "Hey, you made the wing page." The PA people got a picture of me getting the selfie with Enlisted Jesus.
I didn't see that.
You didn't see it?
I was even looking through the page today too.
Oh yeah, it's right. It's like unless they took it down because this fat fuck with a hat on and a beard gets a picture with the guy. But yeah, it was so fucking cool. The guy couldn't have been a nicer guy about it.
Yeah, I didn't see that at all.
Yeah, that's.
Huh.
So this is me getting the selfie with Enlisted Jesus. And look, I'm a retired guy, so I guess it was easier for me to just kind of walk around because, like, what the fuck are they going to do to me?
Yeah.
Like, unless they're going to, like, hit me with sticks,
yeah.
Like, this was going to happen. Somehow or another, this was going to happen, and I fucking made it happen. So, didn't have to fist fight, Rick and Morty style to get the selfie.
That's great.
But yeah, that was pretty much it. I did chores, did some cleaning, some attic stuff, got some more stuff ahead of me. Any future Star Wars shit that I find, I'll make sure gets posted some way or another. But
excellent.
That was it.
So with that, we're gonna hop right into our main topic then, unless you need a break before we start.
Let's roll.
All right, let's roll, son. So this is our first pick a topic from our highest tier Patreon members. So they get to pick a topic, some of them potentially every month. So we reached out to our number one patron, the first person to donate any money to the show, our good friend Shotgun Mark with the hot wife, gave us this topic, the construction of the Death Star and the logistics involved, as I like to call it, a logistical nightmare. So I did some of my own personal research. Dave, you have what is that again?
This is the Haynes manual for the Imperial DS-1 orbital battle station.
Yes.
So this is DS-1.
Yes.
Specifically.
Yeah, because we are going to have some DS2 discussion, but for the most part, we're talking DS1.
Right.
Because I personally think there is still some mystery surrounding the construction of DS2, and I think there is more to that story to be told, hopefully in future canon.
Right.
But for now, we're just talking about Death Star 1 because we know more about that. And I want to start with a disclaimer. So, we know this is a fantasy universe, right? We know so much of the Star Wars universe is kind of explained away because it's fantasy, it's not science fiction, they're not trying to be scientifically accurate with a lot of things that they do. Lucas has never claimed that.
Right.
They've tried here and there to make things seem somewhat feasible, but we know this is a a galaxy far, far away where the laws of physics are very different. We know all of this, but in the process of this analysis, we're actually going to try to reasonably explain some of this as best we can. Right. Obviously, because if you could just explain it away as, oh, it's just fantasy, well, fuck, then the whole thing just built itself.
Right.
You know, so, you know, Harry Potter waved his wand, and then the fucking all the pieces of the Death Star came together, and that's how it happened. So we're trying to go a little bit more in depth than that, and that's kind of the process that we're going through.
And to be honest, like, if we keep this discussion primarily on DS1, the actual fabrication of DS2 makes you believe that this had to have happened with DS1. You know what I mean? I know for me as being younger, thinking about the less than complete Death Star 2. Mm-hmm. That is the first time I really thought about the construction of DS1. Yeah. Because you could visualize it. It's like right there. You see like there's people, there's like this, you know, shell structure that's being built. And it's like you can practically hear people banging and riveting and shit. So yeah, that without the mental image from Return of the Jedi, I don't know that I think about DS1 and the building of it the same way.
Yeah, because in 1977, when you're thrown into the Star Wars universe, it's already finished.
It's just a moon. Yeah. It's a moon with a giant fucking cannon on it.
Yeah, there's no Rogue One. There's none of this stuff.
Right.
It's just there, already complete. So yes, you're probably thinking in the back of your head, oh man, that's a pretty big undertaking. I wonder how the fuck they did that. But it's not until much later canon that we...
Yeah, present day Dave and Jason, yeah, well, that's what we're thinking about. Like, fucking hell, you know? And then when it's destroyed, you think about all the people that died. When we were kids, we were just like, wow, look at the explosion!
Yeah.
Without the special edition fucking...
The fucking shockwave.
Yeah. Which was cool, by the way. It was cool.
That was one of the not as annoying editions of the special editions. So, alright. I'm going to start with some of the things that I did today as I was researching this. So I'm sitting here thinking, what would the cost of the materials alone be? We're not even getting into the fucking engineering, the fucking labor that goes into this. I'm just thinking the cost of raw fucking materials. And I'm trying to do some calculations. Like, I'm actually going into fucking Google and I'm like I'm converting like meter or feet to meters or miles to meters, and then I'm
because everything's in meters,
right? And then I'm doing like, okay, the surface area of a sphere versus the volume of a sphere, and I'm doing like all these calculations. So here's some of the stuff that I came up with, right? So depending on what source you look at, the diameter from end to end of the Death Star is about 120 kilometers. On the low end, they estimate 100 kilometers. On the high end, they estimate like 160 kilometers. So I went with the 120 because that seems to be a popular number. So 120 kilometers diameter. That means end to end.
And that checks with what's in the Hayden van.
Oh, perfect.
It's 120 kilometers.
Which I didn't actually look at that. So
74.6 miles.
Right, and that's the next thing I was going to say. So 75 miles from end to end of the Death Star. So that means you get in your car and you're fucking blasting down the road at 75 miles an hour.
Around the equator.
Yeah. Unimpeded. No. That's diameter. That's not, like, if you wanted to go around the outside, that's even farther.
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah, diameter is like the...
Cutting it in half and then... fucking
so, yeah, that's just like the shortest point between two tips of the thing.
Right.
And that's if you get in your car, blast down the road at 75 miles an hour, unimpeded, you'll get from one end to the other in an hour. So think about it that way. And this is the distance between Philly and fucking Trenton. I, went on to Google Maps and I'm like, okay, what would, like, us Northeasterners, how would we measure this? So it's 75 miles diameter, which I'm thinking, okay, clearly they don't use fucking steel in the Star Wars universe. They use, what is it,
Durasteel.
Durasteel, no, that's what they use for the fucking armor. They mention it in the first Thrawn book. The whatever fucking material they were harvesting on Lothal. I can't fucking remember the name of the...
Shit.
For those of you in the chat, correct us or just let us know what's what. What's the material that a lot of the Death Star is made out of that they were, like, the Empire was confiscating a lot of farms or, like, mining companies that were...
It'll pop.
Yeah. So...
And... Hi, Scott Rasmussen on the chat.
Oh, Scott.
It says he's feeling better.
Oh,
so
good.
That's good to hear.
Yes, our thoughts are with Scott. He, yeah. Anyway, I got derailed. So, all right. So I'm sitting here thinking, all right, let's think about this in the case of steel, right?
Okay.
Just for shits and giggles to give us a kind of an Earth-like reference. So I'm like, how much would it cost just to run a single steel beam from across the diameter, just one diameter of the Death Star?
Right.
So I did some calculation. 6 feet of a steel beam is $150, give or take. This is raw materials. This is no labor. This is no transportation costs.
No forging.
Right. That's simply the raw material.
Okay.
Because you could add anywhere from $500 to $1,500 with fucking labor, transportation, everything else of just a single 6-foot steel beam. Because that motherfucker weighs a lot.
Right.
So, and you think about at the end of Revenge of the Sith, which for those of you watching on YouTube, you can see the Death Star shell there. You've got multiple steel beams going across as the skeleton of this fucking structure.
Right.
Doing some calculations, converting feet to meters, blah, 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 blah. For a single beam to go one diameter of the fucking Death Star would be almost $10 million. So, 75-mile stretch of a single beam, $10 million. That's one single beam, which is probably, 6 inches wide, maybe? Nothing.
If that. Just to put it into some context. So, I was helping my dad with something at the house, and he has this steel I-beam, right, that he used for transferring the boat between two trailers.
Right.
So, he went and bought, this thing is like 8 feet long, and it's probably about 8 inches wide, like a steel I-beam. So it's already formed.
Yeah.
Steel I-beam, solid steel, and it costs almost $300.
Yeah.
For an 8-foot beam, and it's heavy as fuck.
Oh yeah.
Like you might be able to do curls with it with your little arms. But I mean, I was able to do some curls with it, and it's like, wow, this is significant.
Yeah. And again, this is just one single beam going that diameter. Imagine if you're building a Death Star that's 75 miles in diameter.
Excuse me.
You're probably going to want a beam, just in one dimension, a beam every what?
Well,
100 feet? I don't know, because you need such a strong support structure. Now, we know that the rest of it can probably be made of lesser material, but your core, your fucking skeleton, it's got to have these beams. And again, even if you did one every mile in one direction, that's 75 fucking of these beams. So we're already pushing $100 million.
And most likely, so if we think about it, just strictly from an engineering standpoint, right? Mm-hmm. Having one steel beam going straight across because it's going to flex over a period of point, so it's not going to maintain its rigidity like you're going to want, right? So
sure.
You're probably, to span a structure like that, you're going to build some sort of almost like a column of steel.
Yeah.
That would be able to support that, because we know that a column supports more weight.
Sure.
We're also suspending this in space, so does weight really matter? But I think it depends on propulsion.
But and that was something I was going to cover later. You do have the transportation cost of getting it off of the surface of whatever planet you're fucking harvesting it from.
Yep.
So, but anyway, we're just dealing with basic. Oh, nice.
Yeah, we could show for referencing some cutaways once we get to something a little bit more specific. We have some good cutaways here in the book.
So
and here's a little bit bigger shot of what Jason has there on the screen. I don't know how well you can see it.
It's actually pretty good.
You can see this is the globe of the Death Star that's being built, and there is some fairly large structure that's going around the circumference of this thing.
You've got beams going around the circumference in addition to going straight through the structure. Because, again, fucking 75 miles in diameter of a sphere, you're going to need a pretty big support structure. Even with no gravity, you're still going to need a pretty strong support structure because, oh, by the way, this thing can travel through fucking hyperspace. Right? Mm-hmm. So, steel beams alone, just for the core fucking skeleton of this thing, we're talking in the hundreds of millions of dollars in Earth money.
Mm-hmm.
Generous estimate.
Earth money.
Then I started thinking about copper wire. Think about this thing. This thing is just one massive fucking I don't even know what you would want to call it, but a piece of electronics, so to say. The amount of
it's a weapon system.
Yeah, the amount of fucking copper wire that's going through this thing has got to be just unfathomable.
Now, again, keeping in mind that we are the station's outer hull was made of quadanium steel plates, got from Fandom, who got it from the Tarkin novel. Okay.
So good.
And apparently it would cost more money than everyone saves by switching to Geico.
Yes, clearly.
We're not being sponsored by Geico. Thanks, Don. That was funny.
So thinking about copper wire. So I also did some calculations for that. So going for the price per foot of bolt copper wire and then converting that to meters and all that. So a single strand of copper wire to go the diameter of the Death Star, $35,000.
Okay.
Now, you know you're going to have a shitload more in those fucking walls of that Death Star.
Well, so, between the walls, you have the systems for all the weapon systems that are on there because you have individual turrets. You have lighting. All the lighting that has to happen for all these different areas. You have a shield generator that has to happen.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you have all these things that require multiple lengths. Even if you... How much? You said it was $35,000 for one length of copper. What gauge? What gauge?
Oh, the smallest. The absolute smallest, the absolute cheapest I could find.
So
like there was far more expensive stuff in there.
So like 22 gauge wire, like what we're talking about. So if you're in electronics, you know, 20 the higher the number of the gauge, the
thicker the core of the copper, right?
The other way. Oh. 22 gauge wire is not as thick as 12 gauge wire.
Oh, right. It's been a while.
So you think you got all these systems that are just wrapped in wires and shit like that. Even if so let's say they didn't use copper wire. Like, so this is a long time ago, a galaxy far, far away. Let's say they had fiber optics back then. Yeah. Even with the fiber, which is just as expensive, if not more, for you have all these tubes of glass, and it actually states in the book that they use excess energy from the reactor core diverted to lighting systems inside the superstructure so that construction crews could see their work areas easier. So now you're like, okay, just for lighting so that the crews can work on the shit they need to work on, you're going to have some sort of wiring. They have to be able to move that energy there some kind of way.
Yeah. So here's another fun one. So the surface area of the Death Star. So we've talked about the diameter. The surface area is the outer crust, I guess, of the whole fucking sphere. Is, I did some calculations, and it is 45,216 kilometers squared.
Okay.
For the surface area of the Death Star, which is very close to the surface area of the state of Maryland. So think about that. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, okay, how much? Like, let's look at aluminum, right?
Okay.
One of the cheapest metals that we have on Earth, which you wouldn't make as your fucking outer wall of your fucking Death Star.
No.
Because, you know, you got to fend off the rebels and all that other shit. And, you know, you got to keep, like, oxygen inside. And, you know, you're not going to make it aluminum. But if you did make it aluminum, doing pound conversion and everything else, we're looking at about $16 million in the flimsiest, cheapest aluminum to cover that fucking surface area.
And, I mean, to be fair, aluminum is what, if you think about what the lunar landers and all that other stuff, you're talking about these thin layers of foil and, you know, these materials. So it is possible to make a environmental system inside something that thin in the vacuum of space, because you're not dealing with these outside pressures. Everything's in a vacuum.
Sure.
So you can get away with like not having as thick of an outer shell unless you're talking about the ability to protect from weapons outside of the shield.
And that's the thing. That's the consideration.
Like, you could have an M1 Abrams tank that's made out of fucking aluminum that's going to move really fast and be really cheap to make. However, as soon as somebody fucking shoots at it,
you've got a massive hole.
It's
like
done.
you're fucking done.
So now you're plating the shit out of it.
Yeah. So obviously you're going to have much better steel on that surface
area. Yeah. Quadanium. Again, confirming what Scott already told us. It's right here on the Death Star elevation plan. It's like the whole cross section of said Death Star. Just think of all the fucking wires and shit.
Yes. So
like 75 miles in diameter. So what do you know what the diameter of the moon is?
No idea.
It's like, I think it's 2,100 kilometers.
Okay.
Something like that.
So it's bigger than the Death Star.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But
because it's a small moon.
It is a small moon.
So, some more stuff to put this into context, and then I'll let you talk, Dave. But, you know how it's... Sure, you can talk about the price of the raw materials, but what about the construction and everything else? So I thought, all right...
Oh, I lied. It's 3,400 kilometers.
Okay. So what other, like, more complex machinery that we have a reference to here on Earth can we compare this to? And I thought, the One World Trade Center. The new fucking building that they built in New York.
Right. 1,776 feet tall.
That's only with that big fucking antenna on top.
Right.
Going to the end of the top floor is 387 meters, which is like 1,200 something feet.
Mm-hmm.
Cost $3.9 billion to make that structure. Going to the top floor, not the fucking antenna link, but the top floor, if you were to stack these like World Trade Centers on top of each other to make the 75 miles in diameter, you would need 310 of them stacked up onto each other just to stretch the length of one diameter of this thing, which would then cost $1,209,000,000. And that's, again, very narrow.
But it's narrow in comparison because it's a column, but
it gives you more of an idea of the complexity of, like, how much it costs and, like, more moving parts on the inside that you have in a Death Star.
Yeah, glass, steel.
Yes.
The HVAC system, you know, the just shit to make it go, elevators, cabling, not even a giant fucking cannon on the inside.
And I could have, like, then calculated the distance of a block or however wide this thing is, like length and width, and then, like, actually calculated the whole spherical thing. I didn't have fucking time, but we're probably talking in the hundreds of trillions, if not the next illion, whatever
the quintillion, or whatever.
If we're gonna compare, like, the volume of the World Trade Center in dollars and then spread it out to the size of the Death Star. So
just an insane amount of money.
Yes.
Yeah. Jesus. And think about military logistics.
Right, because we haven't even talked about the actual construction or anything else.
Right.
We're just talking
materials.
Cost, like material cost and all of that. Like, I wrote in the title, A Logistical Nightmare, because imagine all of these materials you have to bring in, because you're not going to get all of this metal from a single fucking world.
No.
It's just not going to happen.
Nope.
Because even here on Earth, we have a lot of steel, but it's still finite. Like, there's still only a certain amount of copper and steel on this fucking planet.
Because steel is iron. It's treated iron, so you're taking the raw iron material that has to be, treated, heated, tempered, all the things just to make the steel that's going to go into that. So think about the resource that it would take for the smelting and all the other things to happen.
Yeah.
This is it's a sidebar, but one that's appropriate. Think about the Industrial Revolution in this country. Yeah. Think about, like, what was going on in, post-Depression World War II time. When we're building, the fucking skyscrapers are going up. The Empire State Building is being built. Yeah. You have all these massive structures that are starting to climb into the skies. Yeah. You're building airplanes, that are flying from one end of the world to the other.
Yep.
And all this materials and everything else. It's so hard to imagine. Because right now, I can tell you right now, coming up with a fucking, $1 billion trillion to fucking go build something in a military state is not a military state. That doesn't sound right. But, like, the empire, if you're considering, like, this is fucking boom, we're doing this. Like, there's no fucking committee. There's no Senate. Yeah. Like, I am the Senate.
Yes.
Everything's like, do it.
Yeah.
And now they're building this thing. Oh, by the way, in secret.
Yeah.
In fucking secret. Yeah. You're getting all this fucking resource from the galaxy.
Right.
And trying to transport it all into one thing. It's any wonder that it didn't fucking fall flat on its face a million times. And could you just imagine how much more it would cost? Because is there contractors? Like, who specializes in building fucking giant planetoid fucking Star Destroyers?
Right, and that's the thing. Like, yes, you've got your general labor that you're going to need to just build all of the fucking steel or whatever metal structure this thing is. That's one piece of labor. Then you've got the people who have to actually go in there by hand and fucking run all this wire, fucking install all these lights, fucking make these reactors happen, who have to fucking, do the engineering part. So this is when we get into, like, Galen Erso and his fucking crew, like the engineers. And then you can see why Krennic shows up. He's like, dude, production stalled, man. We're fucked. Like,
Yeah.
There's just so much going on. And I even have a note about this in here. Could you imagine being the project manager on something like this?
Fuck that.
So,
You're one fucking force choke away from like that's it. It's
Yeah.
over. Get the next guy up here.
Yeah.
Get us the guy who's gonna get us on fucking schedule.
Right.
That fucking the guy when Vader shows up about the progress.
Yeah.
Of the fucking Death Star. Well, I guess that was Death Star 2.
That was
right?
Death Star 2, yeah.
But still, you're that fucking guy. Like, oh, I'll double our efforts.
Yeah.
Yeah. I fucking hope so.
Uh-huh.
Or else you're gonna get choked to death.
Yeah.
Sorry, and I'm the nice guy.
And I mean, think about it. If you're the single project manager on the Death Star, you're not planning everything yourself. You have to have a whole fucking crew to be project managers on little smaller aspects of the fucking Death Star. Just the amount of planning alone that has to go into this. Let alone the transporting of all the fucking materials. Because like I said, you're not bringing all this shit from one fucking planet.
Mm-hmm.
You're bringing it galaxy-wide. Thankfully, that's the one thing that the Empire had in its favor, was the fact that there are thousands of other planets within its
well, and
realm of influence, we'll say.
yeah, and think about the seeking mentality that was constantly happening for these resources too. Like there's always some party going out there to look and see, okay, can we get a resource from this? Like what can we get off of Jeddah? Oh shit, we need all these kyber crystals to be able to make the fucking big gun go.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's start fucking digging it up. Park a Star Destroyer over a fucking town.
Yeah, we gotta like go into this fucking museum and just start pulling shit out of that because we're running out of fucking materials.
Yeah, we're talking about some of the armor plating on the hull. Here's a good picture out of the Haynes manual.
Yeah.
Like you see some of the construction happening. I'll straighten it out. There we go. But by the by, this is fucking cool.
Yeah, that is very cool. And hello in the chat to Isaac, and I didn't say hello to Don earlier, but hello, Don.
No, we just made fun of Don.
Yeah. So, I wrote down a couple of... First of all, material alone, more money than any single planet could contribute. Again, the Empire's probably got to scrape off like a large percentage of every fucking planet's economy in its fucking...
But, all right. So, let's think about... We know like Republic credits, and we talk about money in Star Wars, and you think about like the premise of money. You can start getting into the philosophy of like what money actually is, and if you're the Emperor and you are basically controlling by the force of their fear, you're controlling an entire planet of people.
Yeah.
Who fucking cares? Like, do you think he's paying anybody? He might be paying a smuggler or something like that for some of the transport, or might be paying like the fucking labor union off. Yeah. But for the most part, he's showing up with a bunch of stormtroopers to be like, that's fucking mine. Oh. There's no overhead. Stormtroopers don't get paid.
Oh, trust me, I understand this. Now, but there are some more loyal planets to the Empire that probably they were more diplomatic with. But yes, slave labor is a huge consideration in all this, because as we know, they enslaved the Wookiees on Kashyyyk. They enslaved a lot of other cultures, or as I just like to call it, unpaid labor. They got a lot of this unpaid labor.
Otherwise known as children.
Yeah, for construction. So that's where you can mitigate a lot of the costs from the Death Star. But you still have engineers. Like, are you going to just go in there and just,
Yeah, look what they did to fucking Galen Erso.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Like, we're going to put your family in a fucking headlock until you finish this fucking thing. We're going to roll in with some Death Troopers and fucking kill your old lady.
And, of course, well, look what that got them in the end. But, yeah, so I know you can definitely mitigate a lot of the manual labor costs with their unpaid labor that they had around the galaxy. You could also probably take away a lot of the financial costs just from the tax maybe that they put on every planet that's within the Empire. And we talked about it a lot in the Thrawn book. Thrawn figured this whole fucking thing out just from watching supply shipments and monitoring stuff like Empire manifests and things like that, where he saw like this massive funneling of resources, and mostly in these metals, because as we also learned in that Thrawn book, the Empire very I wouldn't even say subtly, but they would seize a lot of mining businesses, and they would confiscate a lot of like mining companies, mining fucking nodes that were found on worlds that had this fucking armor that they could use to build their fucking Death Star.
And they were like with no care in the world. Like there's no OSHA.
Yeah.
You know, there's no the same OSHA that would have spared some metal to make fucking railings for the poor fuckers that are outside. Like, I wish they put a railing right here.
Yeah.
Right here. Well, it's not going to matter when we're all famous country music singers.
Right. But yeah, so obviously within the Empire's influence, they can take what they need sometimes, and that's how you can kind of get the resources. But let's just say you had all the free labor, you had all the free resources, you had all the money you wanted. Still, getting all of this stuff together in secret, no less.
In secret.
In a world that now we know fuel is a big thing.
Yeah.
Just imagine the fuel costs to transport all of this fucking bullshit.
This thing had for, like, I have the specs on the prototype. We're not really going to control. We're not going to talk about that.
I actually did have a note about this like later on if we ran out of time.
Oh, well, so it has a Class 4 hyperdrive
right
in it. And
this fucking planet has a hyperdrive.
Yep.
So imagine the cost that goes into running that motherfucker.
Yeah, I mean, you need your own personal fucking sun to fucking, this helium disk in the fucking sky. Crush that, put it in the middle of this fucking thing, so you can power the whole goddamn thing.
If you watch Return of the Jedi, they have that massive fucking reactor in the middle. It's like that's got to be what's powering the engines and the gun and everything else.
Yep. So, just some quick specs out of the fucking Haynes manual, right? It's called, from the craft itself, it's the MK1. I love it that it's the Mark 1 Deep Space Mobile Battle Station, right? Mark 1.
Yeah.
The manufacturer was the Imperial Department of Military Research and Sinar Fleet Systems.
That's great.
It's awesome. Diameter, we talked about 120 kilometers. Class 4 hyperdrive. It had a backup hyperdrive. Ooh. A Class 20 backup hyperdrive. So it had a backup for when the hyperdrive fucking takes a shit.
Holy shit.
When something that fucking massive. Can you imagine just the fucking engine room? Like, if you just put yourself in a Star Trek mindset, right? Yeah. Where you have fucking, like, a bunch of people run around an engine room almost like a ship.
Yeah.
Now fucking, this is going to be the size of a small moon.
Yeah, so imagine that.
Something the size of Maryland.
Holy fuck.
It's fucking crazy. It's equipped with shielding. It has a Navicomputer. Shocking.
You would hope.
Yeah. The armament. Okay. One super laser. And the disc of the super laser was... Oh, shit. I had that number. I lost it. 35 kilometers in diameter.
Really?
Is the diameter of the disc.
Okay.
The focus disc.
All right. That makes sense.
Should we put my daughter on the spot?
Sure.
All right. Hang on a sec, kids. Hi, you're on the All Things Star Wars podcast.
Fantastic.
All right.
All right, have a good podcast, Dad.
All right. Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.
Like, if
we talked about
it's Monday night. It's Monday night. You know I do the fucking podcast on Monday nights.
Yeah.
If you're gonna call, you're going on the fucking show.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so 35 kilometers in diameter just for the focus disc, right? It has 15,000 time and back D6 turbo laser batteries. 15,000 turbo laser batteries.
That's crazy.
So for each one of those turbo laser batteries, it being a turbo laser, has to have some sort of power source, and it's now drawing off the main power source.
Right, and that's something we didn't even mention when we talked about the cost of the fucking thing, is all the surface lasers. Like all of the fucking turrets and everything that are all along the surface in the fucking trenches and all that shit.
It's got 2,500 Borstel Galactic Defense SB-920 laser cannons.
2,500.
2,500 Borstel MS-1 ion cannons. 760 Phalon tractor beam emplacements. So the tractor beam that brings the Falcon in, right? There's 768. What an odd number.
Yeah.
760, or I guess it's an even number. So it doesn't. I'm sure it gets into like the deeper shit of like how many hangars there were and everything else.
Mm-hmm. Which there were a lot. So, and that's another thing. You've got all these hangars you have to build.
Yep, 11,000 combat vehicles. So, if there's 11,000 combat vehicles, so TIE fighters, TIE bombers, fucking shuttle. Think aircraft carrier, right? So you've got an aircraft carrier that comes with all its own shit, tooling to fix all that. You have to put fuel into the fucking engines that make the fucking fighters go.
Yeah.
You have to have the fucking crew quarters for the pilots and everything else. They
Not
had
just the pilots, the 100,000 fucking stormtroopers that live on the fucking thing.
342,953 crew. Out of that, 285,575 operational staff, 57,278 gunners.
Holy shit! So
Just gunners.
So that's like over 1 million people. On
Yeah.
Death Star.
Passengers, just passengers, 843,342.
What? Well, you think about it. Maintainers.
Yep.
That is one massive fucking structure that probably needs constant maintenance.
Some fucking window breaks out on the surface there, and you need a fucking whole team. It's not gonna be one dude.
Yeah.
You know, sure you're gonna have droids, but then you need dudes to fucking fix the droids.
Mm-hmm. And you think stormtroopers are gonna do that?
Fuck
I don't
no.
think so.
No, they don't. They're that's not what they're there for.
Yeah.
And we know from previous canon that the stormtroopers that ended up on the Death Star were some of the more elite guys. They're like the veterans, the combat veterans, and some of the more elite stormtroopers.
Yeah.
The
So
cargo capacity, over 1 million kilotons. I have no concept of how much that would really be.
Yeah, it's hard to even envision that. So
last two things. Consumables, it had 3 years worth of consumables on board.
food.
Yes.
Wow.
And water and like in the breakout, like when it goes into the schematic function of this thing, it's got massive water tanks. It's got like here's the fucking all the shit that goes in the laser gun. And every time I see this, I think about the Force Unleashed.
Yeah.
Because you go through that whole sequence where you're like jumping around and with the fucking in between all the crystals and shit like that.
Oh yeah. That's some crazy sequencing.
That's like the imagery you have there, but you have giant containers that are holding fucking water, which you need to have water. Yeah, that's
like these 2 million people that are on the fucking station need that. But
Yep.
then you think about it that way. That means you need 2 million beds. You need, to feed 2 million people a couple meals a day every fucking day. That's just insane.
Some
how
of
much that is.
Some of the things that you're talking about here. Atmospheric processing units, pumping stations.
Yeah, that's another thing. You have to pressurize the entire state of Maryland. Pressurize. Oxygen, equal pressure so you don't get killed in the vacuum of space.
And it has some sort of it has its own gravitational field too. So now it's obviously with something that massive, like you believe Einstein, which I think everyone tends to. Like you're taking this giant ball of immeasurable weight and you're placing it into space, where space creates this gravity well around it. Mm-hmm. So even though it's not as massive as something like the moon, it's going to have something internally that's going to make it have gravity. Yep. Which is going to also require power. Mm-hmm. I'm fucking when you really, really think about it, it's like the massiveness of the undertaking to even have it only take decades.
Yeah, 19 years.
Is remarkable.
Yeah, and that's another point of contention too, because most sources will say it took 19 years to build because it was 19 years between the end of Revenge of the Sith and the start of fucking New Hope. But we saw the schematics in Attack of the Clones with the Geonosians, the bug people, and it's believed, and I think it might have even been referenced somewhere in current canon. Is that the prototype? Yeah,
so they call that the Death Star prototype,
which came into play in Legends material. I don't know when this book was written.
2013.
Okay, so this was post Disney buyout, but before they shit canned the whole expanded universe.
Right.
Anyway, what was I talking about? You threw me off. Oh yeah, the timeline. So I think it was referenced because I saw this when I was doing some research online that most that the construction started before Revenge of the Sith. Like the Geonosians and the Separatists had started construction on this already before the fucking war ended. Mm-hmm. So that's what the widest belief is. So when you see at the end of Revenge of the Sith, you see that frame already in place. That's them rolling up on what was already started, them being like, that's cool, that's ours now. Yeah. And now we're going to continue construction on this thing. It wasn't, now that we're the Empire, now we're going to start construction on this thing. It was already going. We're just taking over.
Which still, you think about it, Palpatine's master plan.
Right, like which he was in charge of the other army anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So he fucking had it from both ends.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Scott Rasmussen posted in the Sidebar Cantina something from Forbes.com where it said, how much would it cost to build the Death Star?
Is that in reference? Hold on. Is that in reference to the Gizmodo article? Because I have that in my notes. Is it the $15.6 septillion?
Hang on. Go ahead. Keep talking. I'll look.
So yes, back in 2009, Gizmodo actually did their own estimate on the cost of this, but they factored in everything. They factored in engineering, labor, all of that, and it would be, according to them, back in 2009, $15.6 septillion, which that's a 15 and 24 zeros after it.
Okay, so this is actually, it's a different one. This is from Forbes magazine, and it's the economics blog of students from Lehigh University, which is, a few hours away from here.
Yeah.
Says it would cost 852, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 with 15 zeros.
Right.
Or roughly 13,000. I don't want to see an ad. God damn it.
So anyway, we're talking in more
13,000 times the world's gross domestic product.
Right, which makes
GDP.
sense, but
that's just to make the steel.
Oh, that's just to make the steel.
That's just to make the steel.
So then maybe they are going off of that same Gizmodo article that was the 15.6 septillion. But again, you're not taking into effect. Now this is just like if we as Americans who actually like pay for labor and all that and pay for goods and not just take them, that's how much we pay. But if you're the empire and you have all of this unpaid labor,
right,
and you could just go to other worlds and be like, we're gonna scrape 10% off the top of every single planet's economy. And by the way, you're going to give us 30% of all your fucking raw materials, then the price tag isn't as bad.
So another interesting thing, not necessarily equating to the money, but the time, right? Because steel, it takes time to make steel.
Yes.
So it would take 833,315 years to produce enough steel to begin the work.
But that's again at American rates, right?
Well, within the Earth standard,
right?
Because it says the Earth itself. Again, fun fact out of this: the Earth, the crust doesn't have enough to make.
Right, and that's what I'm saying.
Like but the Earth's core has enough to make 2 billion Death Stars.
Damn.
So if you strip the Earth down through its core, which let's think about that. What do we know the Empire was doing to get some of these materials? They were drilling down through everything. They were stripping the cores.
Holy shit. Think about this. What if Starkiller Base was a planet that the Empire fucking pillaged their core like decades before? And the First Order rolls up, they're like, oh yeah.
Oh, it's already hollowed out.
Yeah, fuck. We'll just like throw some machinery in there. Bob's your uncle. You know? So maybe that's what they did.
Entirely probable. If you think about it, like just to get the materials. In fact, is like thinking about it in Earth terms and projecting Earth out into the rest of the galaxy, you only would need a couple of Earths to get the raw materials, but then you need the raw materials to process those materials to get to what you needed to do.
And there's still a lot of time intensity there.
Yep.
And that's why they probably have to spread this out over thousands of worlds to get done.
I think about, I've read so many different sci-fi books and shit like that, and like conceptually, this isn't like something that's only isolated here to Star Wars, right?
Sure.
Star Wars.
Like, did you ever read Ringworld? Larry Niven's Ringworld?
I think I have, actually.
Yeah, the concept of that is, Halo. If you're
playing
Halo games, it's a ring that's built around a fucking sun. So, like, imagine the logistics behind that. But they've been doing stuff like this in sci-fi forever.
Yeah, and it's just one of those, projections where we project ourselves out into the universe.
Yeah.
I was doing something else with that in my brain, but it's gone now.
Did you ever read Rendezvous with Rama? No. Aside from Star Wars, some like the best science fiction I've ever read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could go into all kinds of shit. Like there was a guy from work. He has me reading. It's called the Bob's shit. What the hell's oh my god, Vickers, if you're listening, fucking text me. What's the fucking book? The Bob's.
In the chat, Alexa Siri said Elon Musk will build the Death Star. I believe it. Yeah, he might. I think we talked about this on the podcast, but you remember when he shot the fucking car into space?
Mm-hmm. With the fucking spaceman driving it?
Yeah. Like, I saw a meme before I ever actually read the article about what actually happened and what he did. And the meme was when you take shrooms, but they don't kick in, so you drive to Taco Bell, and it shows that fucking the spaceman with the fucking Earth behind him.
Oh man.
And then I read later on that day, like, oh yeah, he shot this fucking car into space, and here's the actual photos from that. But anyway.
Oh. Just a little shout out to my daughter. She's been, working hard to become, she's up at State College now with Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
So she's been added to the Penn State News studio crew.
Oh, sweet.
So very cool.
Congratulations.
Kate. Congratulations.
Very nice.
Anyway, sorry, that's what she was calling about. She was looking for some congratulations. So
Nice.
Good job, Kate.
So, getting back to the Death Star. Again, the logistics of bringing all of this shit together. All of the steel beams, all of the fucking engine parts, all of the crew quarters, the turbo lasers, everything we fucking talked about. Logistical fucking nightmare. Even if all the resources and all the labor was free, just getting it into one central spot and then deciding, okay, first the engine people are going to go, and then fucking do your shit, and then the fucking, the other structure people are going to come, and they're going to put on the fucking surface, and then you guys are going to come in and do the turbo lasers. Just trying to manage that alone.
Oh my god, I got to remember the name of these books, because it's one of the things that's in this book with the Bobs, right? It's like a series of books, and this guy takes himself, and basically he's freezing himself so that he can be encoded into something else later on, right? Okay. Well, that company, he makes a bunch of money selling he sells a software firm, right? Gets all this money,
right?
Elon Musk style, right?
Of course.
So he fucking goes to this company in Vegas and says, okay, fuck it, I'm anything happens to my body, I want it fucking frozen, and fucking hook me up later.
Yeah.
So what happens? He fucking steps out in front of a bus. As soon as he comes out of the fucking building after he just had himself froze, boom, gets hit by a bus.
Nice.
Fast forward, and they don't actually, it's not actually his body. They just basically replicate his memory.
Sure.
So it's him,
yeah,
in ones and zeros, impregnated into a robot.
Okay.
So it's not even a robot. It's a consciousness.
Right.
So that program they're using to actually work in other systems. Really, really interesting premise, and yeah. I'm in the second book, but you talk about this world building, right? Where you're trying to extrapolate all these different things into materials. Okay, I want to build something on the other side of the galaxy. I'm going to need way stations at each spot to be able to say, okay, I'm going to get to this point with this material and collect this material here, build a certain portion of it here, which means that not even just the off-site areas where you'd have to have construction to be able to build the pieces that are going to put on the back of a truck to fucking get driven to where the Death Star is. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm on a turnpike every day, and I'm constantly passing construction materials.
Right.
I-beams, big sections, giant concrete tubes.
Sure.
That type of shit. That's in space. Going to one spot where they assemble that, then they fucking take that and move it to another spot.
Mm-hmm.
Airplanes are another example. They build fucking airplane fuselages, the 737 fuselages built in Kansas. So they fucking put it on a rail. They basically have a rail car with a fuselage, some 737 fuselage on it, that goes all the way to fucking Renton, Washington, where they put the fucking wings on, the empennage, and everything else. So this same concept of all this building, how much of a delay is this on?
I don't know.
That was fucking weird. I'm still on my first beer on that one.
I don't know. Anyway.
Bobaverse books, yes. But I can't think of the name of it.
Yeah. But airplanes the same thing. They build them in a different spot.
Yeah, you're putting all the materials together, in Renton, Virginia, or Renton. I keep thinking Reston. In Renton, in Washington State, where they take the 737, they build the wing box, right? And they cook the wing box in these giant ovens, which take their own materials to fucking make. Mm-hmm. Then they get the wings and the spars and all that other shit coming off of it. They prep all that so that the fuselage shows up, and they marry those two things together. Mm-hmm. And they do all this other shit. Where are you building TIE fighters to fly them to fucking be at the Death Star? And even while it's in construction, there's got to be some perimeter security, right?
Oh, of course.
So just the sheer amount of coordination and everything else
and I think that
boggles the mind.
Yeah, that seems so much more difficult to wrap your mind around than the actual physical construction and getting the materials.
Sure.
Just the
you give me a pile of Legos, I'll make anything.
Right.
But you got to get the fucking Legos there.
Right. And yeah, just the organization and how the fuck, what order you're going to do everything in. And that's a lot of an engineering nightmare too, because these engineers have to figure out how the fuck we're going to assemble this thing bit by bit, and
and then you got to test fire the fucking thing. Like, okay, we're gonna set this thing up. The one thing about the prototype that we see in the that guy fucking in the little palm quarter whatever
in Attack of the Clones, yes.
Yeah.
The Geonosian.
That guy. That prototype was also 120 kilometers.
Okay.
No hyperdrive. Had a couple ion engines. Only had 250 people on it, and a couple months of consumables.
Yeah.
But it was just the beams going across. It wasn't. There was no armor. There were no turbo laser cannons. None of that fucking shit.
Right. Keep talking. I'm just looking for something.
It was all subspace travel. Man, the Haynes manual has such good stuff in it. Talking about the hangars. Of course, I got to flip over to a picture that's got my buddy, the TIE pilot. He's pretty awesome.
Fuck, this is the one book that's missing from the sacred text.
What are you looking for?
I'm looking for book 1 of the Jedi Academy trilogy.
Oh, okay. I can't help you there.
Yeah, it's
This gets into like the city sprawl on the it talks about the Northern Hemisphere city sprawl, where I guess the domiciles, it's got turbo laser cannons. Like if you're playing Battlefront 2, Star Wars Battlefront 2, it's on that when you're flying over to the Death Star surface, you get to get up close and personal with some of this stuff before you get into the trenches. Yeah, there's recreation facilities where stormtroopers apparently practice shooting. Not very well, but I don't know. That whole thing it's got refreshment bars and sparring courts and melee training lanes and benches. And
I can't find the book, but so talking about the Death Star prototype in
trainers. They had fucking PT people.
Oh my god.
They had trainers.
Which makes sense. Like, you would probably need to maintain physical fitness while you're there. Okay, so the Death Star prototype, we're going to talk about this really quick. In Legends material, as part of the Jedi Academy trilogy, it was Admiral Dalla was in charge of the Death Star prototype, which was what you were talking about there, that first shell that you see. A lot of people believed at the time, before it all got shit-canned, that shell that you see at the end of Revenge of the Sith is actually the prototype and not the finished Death Star that we see, because the prototype ends up getting sent away by Palpatine with Admiral Dalla to go fucking hide away after the Empire falls. She's still out there in bumfuck Egypt with this fucking prototype that can still fire.
Yeah.
And now she goes and starts attacking the New Republic.
In Legends material.
Legends material.
Right.
Yeah, so not canon anymore. But that is a Death Star reference that happened, which was actually a really cool story. Anyway, in current canon, let's talk about the second Death Star for a second.
Okay.
So all of this talk that we've done about the first Death Star, the fucking, just the time that it would take, the materials, the logistics, everything else. The Death Star 2 is confirmed to be much larger than the first one.
Right. I'll give you the specs on it here in a moment.
And you're telling me that they put this together in the span of 4 fucking years. I call horseshit on that. So
he had to have been building the second one almost concurrently with the first one.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially like you think of the materials. So the diameter of DS2 is 160 kilometers.
Okay, so slightly bigger, not like double or anything, but it's a little bit.
What would we say the first one was?
120.
Okay, yeah, so it's 99.4 miles.
Yeah, and there's no fucking way in this galaxy that thing was thrown up over the course of 4 years. Even though, yes, it's still under construction, like we talked about at the beginning of the show. It's still not complete. Not in fucking 4 years. No fucking way. Palpatine had to have been working on that far earlier.
Yeah.
And who the fuck knows? Maybe we're going to see another Death Star in Rise of Skywalker.
You almost have to believe that something like that's going to happen.
Like they're going to come back to that, and Palpatine's going to roll back in. Well, we're going to see part of the Death Star for sure. If nothing else, the fucking ruins that are in that ocean, which we believe has got to be Endor at this point, right? Endor, fucking the first fucking or the second Death Star. So we're going to see some type of Death Star reference in Rise of Skywalker. But I call fucking horseshit if you ever try to convince me that they only started construction on the second one after the first one was destroyed.
So something that's in the section about on DS2 that goes to like what we're talking about with the logistics. So you got these small moons surrounding the Death Star, right?
Yep.
The Imperial hull plate extractors. So they're basically a city system that's only job that orbiting the Death Star is to produce the hull plating for the Death Star.
Right.
So
which, then you can go more Inception and go, all right, well, what was the process of building these fucking plate extractors? Yeah. You know? Because they're not fucking small either. So it's, even if, like, that is true and is still canon, which it seems like some of the stuff in this book isn't anymore, but if that is true, like, there's a production process for those as well. So it's, you just keep going deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole, and it's, regardless of anything else, tons of labor. Probably billions of people working on this thing, if not trillions, in one aspect or another. Be it the basic metal making up to the fucking, you know, running of the fiber wire through the walls. Right. You know what I was thinking about too when I was thinking about like the copper, when I was thinking about it in reference to copper running through all the walls. Think about when we used to work on airplanes.
Oh God.
You look at like the KC-135, which from a layman they look at it, it's like, oh, it's an aircraft. Start taking apart some of the fucking insulation in that thing. All you see are fucking wire bundles.
Well, think about the main wire bundle, right? That goes in from the avionics cabinet and it goes down underneath and goes into like where the instrument amplifier is and all that other shit, right? Mm-hmm. That fucking wire bundle was this thick. That thing was as thick as your fucking dome. Yeah. Right? I know because I had to fucking find a broken wire in the middle of that motherfucker. Yeah. And I did it. Because I was a goddamn good avionics fucking specialist. But that fucking wire bundle being that thick, the amount of copper just in that alone, because there's a bunch of 22 gauge wires that are coming out of other fucking systems in the electronics cabinet. That's just the fucking support structure before you even get to the equipment that's sending the commands to other shit. Mm-hmm. And the power and every other fucking thing. Insanity. Yeah. Talking about this book, which in 2013, not necessarily canon, it states specifically that after the destruction of the Death Star at Yavin, Emperor Palpatine ordered designer Bevel Lemelisk to produce an even more advanced battle station with a hypermatter reactor to generate power equivalent to hundreds of supergiant stars. This book would try and get us to believe that thing was built after the destruction of the one in Yavin. What I agree with you. I think that this is based on how the canon is right now, as part of the Emperor's long game, that this had to have already been happening. Yeah. Like, oh, why not have one when I can have two? Right. Like, if you went and mined a system, and you know an Earth-sized system can produce 2 billion Death Stars, and you've got all that raw material, you already have it. You got a bunch of people that are trained how to make it already. All right, let's just up the scale a little bit and fucking do it again.
Yeah. And did you ever see the movie Contact with Jodie Foster?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was that same thing where they built 2 of those fucking things.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, why
the one in Japan is being built.
Yeah, why build one when you can build 2 for just twice the price?
Yeah.
You know? So, similar concept there. And, yeah, like you said.
Underrated movie, by the way.
Yeah, I enjoyed
it. Really good book.
Yeah.
Really good book.
And you can't go wrong with, all right.
All right. I'm a priest in this one, yeah.
Yeah. But, I don't know really where else to go with this. I mean,
there's so much. I mean,
there's a lot of minutia we could get into. We'll just say that. But
like, there's a decent size comparison between DS1 and DS2.
Oh, nice.
That's here. Like, I'll show you.
Yep.
Just for scaling purposes.
Which
there.
That makes it look like it's about twice the size.
Right.
So
but from a diameter standpoint, now granted, you take that diameter, now you're amplifying it by exponentially in volume.
Because 20 miles is pretty long. That 20-mile difference.
Yeah, between the 20 kilometers for sure.
Yeah, or 20 kilometers.
Yeah.
No, it was miles because the 40 kilometers, 20 miles.
40 kilometers.
Anyway. So
fucking kilometers. Who uses kilometers?
I know the
Quiet Canada.
I know the Catalyst novel. It was a prequel that came out before Rogue One, I think. it went into a lot of like Galen Erso stuff, talking a lot about kyber crystals. I read like the first several chapters.
Yeah, because they were trying to manufacture
like synthetic.
Yeah, synthetic kyber crystals.
Yeah, so I know that touched on some of the construction of the Death Star and all that. I didn't finish reading that book, so I don't know. I couldn't.
Yeah, I think it was something we were doing for the show. I finished it. Yeah. I mean, there wasn't anything earth-shattering in it as far as the canon goes.
Yeah. And then, of course, we know in a lot of recent canon, they focused a lot on this first Death Star. Between Rogue One, the Thrawn books, especially Thrawn's 1 and 3, they talk a lot about the Death Star with, like, the first one, Thrawn discovering the fucking, all of the materials going, and he goes up to Palpatine, he's like, "You're building a super weapon, aren't you?" And Palpatine's like, "What the fuck? How'd you know?" He's like, "Come on, man."
Cause, come on, buddy. Come on, buddy. Everybody
knew.
I'm not finishing it.
As soon as you shipped all this goddamn metal right through the door, you was going to build a Death Star. So, and then in the third one, the whole premise, at least the way that book starts, was, my God, that YouTube really is behind.
Yeah, God, it's like, it's on such a delay. It's crazy.
Yeah. Interesting. So, the third one, it's the third Thrawn book starts off with, oh yeah, all of our Stardust materials are being stolen from this one little shipping place. You know, that's what led to the greater conspiracy. But yeah, like, so much of current canon is focusing on that first Death Star, the construction and everything else. So,
which makes sense because it's something that massive. It can change. It's such a game changer.
Yeah.
Like in that universe, in any universe, you create a giant fucking super weapon. Like, think of the detente that's created by nuclear weapons, right? Just the fact that what that weapon can do is detente enough. So if you have a fucking super weapon that you can drive into hyperspace to fucking show up in your backyard and fucking spend 10 minutes orbiting the small moon. Yeah. You know,
and that intimidation factor alone is enough to keep people
piss me the fuck off, and I'm gonna have a goddamn super weapon pointing its big green glowy fucking lasers right in your goddamn grill if you don't shut the fuck up.
Yeah. So honestly,
you may fire when ready.
We can get into more details, but I think we've covered enough. I think we've kind of gotten the point across to where this thing really must have been just the biggest fucking logistical nightmare imaginable. And I feel for Krennic and whoever else were involved at the higher levels of production of this thing, because you couldn't pay me enough money to fucking have that job. And maybe that's why Krennic is such a fucking grumpy little bastard.
Well, plus he's a power-seeking fucking sociopath.
But that's it. Shotgun Mark, I hope you enjoyed this episode. This was for you, buddy.
Yep.
This was his episode choice. So, what do you guys think? If you have anything more to add, or if we just like totally fucked up a part of our analysis, just join the All Things Star Wars Sidebar Cantina Facebook group and go in there and tell us how fucking stupid we are.
Yep.
And
the best part about this is the canonically, like, this is just us speaking about the greater concept of what the Death Star is.
Right, because we're trying to make real world analogies.
Exactly, and just the physics of it alone, of building a space station like that. Think modern day science and what we're doing with the International Space Station. How many years? Think of how many, like, I was thinking about this as we were talking. Think about the Apollo space program and where that came from. Like, okay, we're going to put somebody on the moon. Now we're going to develop this spacecraft, and fucking we're going to morph in this and go to this spacecraft, and we're going to morph to this. And that happened so fucking fast in the grand scheme of things. Like, it went from concept to fucking happening faster than anything we've ever done.
Yeah.
Ever. And that's, by today's standards, to try and do something similar to that, you'd never get done.
Not
ever.
the government.
We'd be dead.
Yeah.
We'd be dead before the fucking first part of it got into fucking space.
Yeah, it would never happen with the government. With a private company, maybe. But
maybe. It would be with no restrictions at all, like no OSHA, no fucking, like, oh, you can go ahead and mine this fucking this planetoid to fucking down to dust.
Yeah. And
nobody's gonna fucking say anything about it. Like, you have the hippies. Boo on you, man.
Gungans are people too.
Yeah, hippies suck in every universe or galaxy.
Yeah,
but
way, you get the point.
Yeah, it's fucking.
So, all right, that's it. We're gonna in the episode here, we still have our football portion that we're going to record.
That's right.
Afterwards.
Stay tuned on the YouTube. Yeah, we will be getting into be giving an update for what's happening on our fantasy football league.
Yes.
And see where we're at as of right now, because we still have we have a double header that's getting ready to kick off in about 30 minutes.
Yes.
So we still have some football left to go tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you right now, it's pretty tight between Don and I right now.
Yeah.
It's pretty tight. And what really sucks is that his quarterback for tonight, I have starting in another league.
All right, save it for the next episode.
So
we're trying this year to keep the Star Wars separate from the football, hence the 2 episodes. So if you don't give a shit about football, then you don't have to listen to that one. But for those of you who want to, then stay tuned. We'll get the football episode going right after this.
That's football and then other general fucking whatever comes up. But
yep. And just a general reminder, next week we will not be recording, so episode 119 won't come for 2 weeks. Topic TBD, probably another pick a topic. So
probably who knows, we might have some more stuff to talk about.
That is true.
We have
a lot can happen in 2 weeks, especially as now we're getting really fucking close.
Yeah, things are starting to happen.
Yeah, 3 months. 3 months.
It's crazy.
So, all right, guys. Thanks everybody for joining us in the YouTube, on the audio, and until next time, Dave, may the force be with you.
May the force be with you. Plunk.
Okay, now what do I click?